Coaches, I'm Roger Theder, and it's exciting to be here to talk to you today about one phase of the game of football, the running game. Probably the most exciting and interesting phase of the game, coming from a guy like me, is the great respect and admiration I now have for the running game. Many of you who've been associated with the different programs that I've been involved with know what our great proficiency has been, the fact that we've been able to throw the ball so effectively. I think any time you go through a situation like that and that part of your game is so strong, I think maybe a neglect falls into another area of the game. And because of that neglect, we made a great decision a number of years ago. While I was a member of Mike White's football staff in 1975, we made a commitment to do some things in the running game. Now, when I say that, I think the amazing thing that happened at that time, through our years at Cal from 72, 73, 74, we were no better than a 50-50 football team. All of a sudden in 1975, we turned that program around. Suddenly we were 8-3, we were a different football team, we got over the top. And in doing that, the amazing statistic that happened to us, our football team rushed for 228 yards a game. Our football team passed for 228 yards per game. I think the amazing thing about this, after an 11-game season, this statistic has never been approached in college football before, and I'm not sure ever will again. And the reason this statistic came out, our feeling was to be successful, we not only had to run the football and throw the football, we had to especially run the ball with great efficiency. And that's what we did that year. So as we start talking today about the different aspects and the different phases of the running game, I'm going to try to show you how my background and some of the people that I've been around have reinforced this great feeling I now have to be able to throw the football on one hand, but mainly to make a very effective running game. Now, I'm an old Midwesterner, and I think sometimes when we talk that way, the Midwestern philosophy, and I came out of one. I came out of Bowling Green State University under a great football coach in Doyd Perry. At Bowling Green, we were probably 90% run, 10% pass. That was the Mid-American Conference way of doing things. Suddenly, I was involved in a program out here in the West Coast, came to California, worked with John Ralston and Mike White. Great quarterbacks. But even then, if you really look into some of those ball games, our Rose Bowl games against Michigan and Ohio State, the reason we were successful, other than the fact there were some great defensive people, we ran the ball and we ran it fairly effectively. I think a guy that had a big impact on me, and as I get into talking about this running game and one phase, which is the trap game, Frank Cush, who was the head coach of the Baltimore Colts when I went to work for him, convinced me that you've got to run the ball. My first year with the Colts, we stumbled a little bit, threw the ball, ran the ball. The next year, Cush's philosophy was, hey, we're going to take the football and we're going to be the best running team in the National Football League. That year we had two runners, Curtis Dickey and Randy McMillan, close to 2,000 yards between the two of them, which is amazing. Seldom does that happen where two of the backs are in that 1,000-yard rushing situation. I spent enough time with Frank in the USFL and then on to the San Diego Chargers a year later to again reinforce these feelings that the only way you're going to be successful is to be able to effectively run the ball. Now, in the next couple hours on this tape, what I'd like to do is take you through a method of making your running game be more effective. Now, I think the first thing you have to do is to be known for something. It's very obvious. If we look into college football and you think of Oklahoma, what's the first thing you think of? Obviously, the wishbone offense. They do it so well. They're so effective with it. That's what they're known for. You think of the Dallas Cowboys in their great years under Tom Landry, the multiple sets, the amount of variety and amount of running plays that they ran, the shotgun, so many different things that they got into. This is kind of the direction I'm going to go as we start talking about it, because I believe this. I believe you've got to be a balanced attack. I don't think you can just necessarily be all run or all pass. You've got to be balanced. You've got to complement the run with the pass, complement the pass with the run. I think that's critical. The other thing I think you have to do You have to take the best sets that you feel in this multiple offense and pick out the best runs from those sets that are effective for you and you feel you can do the best job with. I think the third thing you have to do is change this from week to week. I don't think you can take certain runs and run them every week because the defense is going to get better at stopping those runs and now you're not going to be as effective. Now there will be certain runs. Obviously, if you believe in the eye toss and that's maybe the best run that you run, you can run that every week and you do it a lot of different ways. Now, the fourth point is to simplify. In other words, if we want to take this multiple system and simplify it, we'll take a play, take a particular running play. Let's say, for instance, the running play that we're talking about is just to take that fullback and we're going to run the weak side belly play. The initial way we want to run that belly play is to come out in what we call a far set, which is this formation right here. We're going to run that belly play with a handoff and give the ball to that fullback on a weak side play. Now, we can run that same play with a different look. All we've got to do with that same play, we could line up in the I formation, put that tailback in movement, snap the ball, and now we're running that same belly play with a little different action. Also, nothing says we can line up in that formation, we can motion that Z across. Get him in the far formation, motion that Z across, come with that same play. Different look to the defense, forcing coverage and assignment responsibility changes. That's what we're trying to do. But for these guys up here, nothing has changed. It's still our weak side belly or our weak side reach play. The one area that I'm going to touch on, but only from the standpoint of protecting the quarterback, is the option. I know a lot of you want to talk about the option play and the different ways to run the option. I'm not going to get into much detail on the option. I will talk about the option football from what we learned and I learned while a member of the coaching staff of the San Diego Chargers. Here's a football program that's got a great quarterback in Dan Fouts. They want to run an option. Obviously, they're not going to run that option play with Dan Fouts carrying the ball. So what they devised is a method of doing that, and I'll get into much more detail on this as we get into this lecture, is they'll hand the ball off to a guy like a Lionel James. Let him take that ball on a sweep action or a power action, whatever the best play is they feel they can run, and now he'll either run the ball or he'll pitch it to one of those backs. So now they're sitting there with three backs in the backfield, eliminate that wide receiver, run this formation, and now run an option. It's an interesting and a unique way. I think it's something you'll get excited about, and it may be a phase of the game where you're saying to yourself, hey, I'm a team that has a big, strong quarterback that throws the ball well. I don't want him coming down that line of scrimmage running the option, similar to the way the pros feel, and then this will be able to help you, and maybe it's something you can incorporate. All right. Okay, coaches, now let's talk about a numbering system that we'll use so that we can communicate as I diagram these plays. Obviously, I'm not going to have 14 guys on the field or 13. We'll have 11. But for numbering's sake, let's think in terms of the even numbers to the right, the odd numbers to the left. So that if we were going to go with a 0 hole, the 2, 4, 6, 8 to our right, and this is the 0, when we talk that, I'm talking 0 inside of the right side of the center, 1 being the left side of the center. 3 hole, 5 hole, imaginary 7 hole there if it was a tight end, and our 9 area to the outside. Now, any running play that we have, if we're going to run in the 8 hole, it'll be some type of an 8 play with a number attached to it. That number attached to it will come from the back. Our backs in these various alignments, if the fullback is lined up in his normal alignment behind the center, we'll talk about it coming from the 3 area. In all cases, I'll diagram it only from a right formation, so our split side will be here. So the halfback now would be in the 4 position as the weak back. If the fullback or halfback was in the strong position, he'd be in the 1 area. If he's in the I position, it would be in the 2 area. As an example, if we wanted to run our tailback from the I formation on a sweep to the strong side, obviously we would call it a 28 toss or sweep or whatever we decide is the best type of a word to describe what kind of play it would be. All right, defensively, again, so we have a communication method. Defensively, I'll try to do all these from both an even and an odd look so that you get a picture, but we talk about the 34 defense, we're talking about a nose guard, we're talking about ends, we're talking about linebackers. For simplicity's sake, an outside or an S linebacker being a Sam linebacker, the inside linebacker, the inside strong linebacker being a Mike linebacker, an inside linebacker here, the B, or just to give him a term, a Bart linebacker, because we have a W or a weak linebacker on the outside weak. Those would be the 4 linebackers, and the secondary, obviously, just the corners, a strong safety, and a weak safety. And that's how we'll refer to them as we talk about the various plays that we're going to get into. Now, let's take the first formation being the I. What I want to do in each formation, as we talked about the multiple sets and how we attack defenses from these multiple sets, let's start with the I. When we go into the I formation, I think it's important in each one of these sets to understand what are the strengths and weaknesses of these formations. Because I think if you have a good grasp of that, then you're saying, well, maybe I shouldn't be in the I formation. The strengths that they're talking about don't fit the personnel that I have. I don't think when you're looking at these different running backs, we don't always have to say this guy's got to be 6'3", 230-pound running back. Quickness from that back, a guy that would fit in the I formation of this. You've seen it in a lot of college football teams, the great tailbacks, the Charlie Whites, the people that had great success at USC. Not great in size, but great quickness, great ability to run to daylight. So that's the kind of guy you're looking for if you want to run the I formation. The good thing about that formation, I think, is it does hit both strong and weak quite effectively. When you get into the I, we can run that I back or that full back to either side with equal efficiency. You better, if you're going to run the I formation, have a guy at this position that can block. He better, I'm not saying he has to be the biggest back, but he better be a guy that can stick his nose up in there. He's going to go in and hit somebody, or this guy is going to be so much less effective, and the I formation will not be a great formation for you. One thing it also gives you, it's a great formation for a play-action pass game. The I, it's not a great drop-back attack, but for play-action, faking, excellent. Excellent out of the I formation. Any of you that have been running it, I think you're finding that to be a great ploy from the I formation. The other thing it does, it takes a little pressure off this guy. If you do like to throw the ball, and you're not, as we talked about, you're not an option team, it takes some pressure off that guy. He's coming back on a cut or a toss play and unloading the ball, but it's not a lot of intricate ball handling. So I think that's a great advantage in the I formation. Now, on the other side, it really limits your drop-back passing game. I mean, we have no ability or limited ability to get a back out into this flat area to control underneath coverage very quickly because we don't have anybody sitting over those tackles like you find in other formations. So it's limited for the drop-back passing game. Sometimes it becomes more of a flow, a full flow type of an offense. The toss sweep and various plays like that. It's not a quick hitting play other than doing things quickly with the fullback on the trap game inside. It's not a quick hitting type of an offense. And you're going to find, and I think this will be the word we get into the meat of the discussion, you're going to find, and I know when you watch Joe Collier's tape, the first move you're going to see defensively and the first adjustment, the minute you get in the I formations, they're going to take that defense and they're probably going to offset that nose a little bit. And now they're going to bump that end down, that linebacker down, and stack that guy in there so that they give you that reduced look on the weak side to make this running game less effective over here. It's the first adjustment, so you better be prepared the minute you get into the I formation to be able to attack that defense. You also better be ready to go in with some form of a check with me system so that if you get defenses like the 46 or overshifted defense and you have a toss or a strong side play called, you can come back to the other side. And we'll discuss that in great detail. All right, let's take the lead play now that as we get into this formation. Let's start with the 43 or the 34 defense. Move them back to that normal and just go over the base concepts of the lead play out of the I formation, which I think you start with the I toss. Let's not start inside. Let's start with the I toss being the lead play that we would want to make go from this formation. We're saying now we've got that guy right here that's a great I back runner. So let's start with the toss play out of the I. Now, We could run this, as we said, from a lot of ways. I can run this play by lining up in it. I can run it maybe more effectively by running that wide receiver across to pull that strong safety over there. Now I get a softer corner, or that little DB in high school. How many of these guys want to come up and tackle that running back? Maybe they've got their safety in here that's a big, strong guy, but if motion will help you to run the play, do it. Otherwise, let's line up, run the play from the base formation. All right, let's start with how we're going to run that play. To simplify for these backs, I'm going to just backtrack a little bit. To simplify the system for these guys, whether it's an I play, a far play, a split play, whatever it happens to be, we want to make it as simple as we can for them. A method that we found with our backs was to give that back, if it's a run, give that running back a particular course. Now, that course may be a dive course in here, a slant course, a sweep course, one of those three courses. On that course, give him a man that he has to read. Every time that back is running the football, there's somebody on this side of the ball that's going to tell him where to go. It's not the old theory, just run to daylight. What does that mean? Run into daylight means there's somebody that's telling me where to go with the football when I get it. So we give him a course and a man to read. We're talking about the I toss. The course would be a sweep course. The man to read would be the Sam or the outside linebacker. So now he knows, very simply, I'm going to get that ball without talking about any technique he's going to use. I'm going to get that football on the toss. I'm going to read that Sam linebacker. All right? The other thing these backs have to do is block. So again, you've got to give them a course to get where they want to go, and also the type of block they want. So the blocking simplicity, again, it's a course. On this toss course, for instance, that fullback's course is a slant course 1 yard deep over the tail of the tight end. 1 yard deep over the tail of the tight end. The block that he's going to execute as he goes, we want him to run a power block or a kick out, to kick that man out so that back can run the ball up inside of it. So all he's going to do in his assignment is to run a slant course, and we found we wanted to get him about 1 yard deep over that tight end's tail so that he had an ability, in case that outside linebacker went there, he may have to search up inside to find that safety coming up. If that linebacker's hooked, he may have to bounce outside. So we ran that. If you run that course in there too tight, you get that fullback up in there too tight, and he's got that backer is sitting inside, he's got to bounce outside. He gets all tangled up there and he can't make that adjustment and get there. So the real coaching point on this play, get him at that position about 1 yard deep over the tail of that tight end to make that block. So he's going to try to block the force, whether it's a strong safety or the corner, and we haven't talked splits. These guys basically, we want to run them off and block those corner or that inside safety. Now, up front, the key block comes right here. And this block is not a block that's got to be the forceful drive block where we're really coming off and knocking that guy off the ball. All that tight end wants to do is get up in that Sam linebacker's face. Get up in his face and make him do something to give that back a read. The tackle is trying to reach or hook that defensive end. The two guards, because this is a toss play, there's two ways I'm going to show you to run this. In college, we ran it by pulling both guards. This guard here is going to pull, run a course with some depth, looking for that first linebacker to the inside. Now, on that course, he's also got to be alert the minute he pulls. If he sees any kind of run through, he's got to be able to adjust and come back inside on that toss. If you're going to pull the off guard, in pulling the off guard, we now wanted a good reach block by that center on that nose guard. So now if that guard is pulling, he's got the same type of an eyeball technique as he's pulling, and he's searching up inside looking for that off backer that's going to be trailing that play. Now if you do it this way and you pull both guards, this offside tackle has got to come down, because what if they slanted and that nose guard came the other way? This center certainly isn't going to get him by going for a reach. He's going to be backdoor on him. So now we told that tackle as you came down, that's the first thing you're looking for, to come right down and cut that nose guard so that he can't make the play. If you don't want to do that, and in pro football the way we were running it, and not trying to do this, we just on this side basically scooped both the guard and the center to account for these two people rather than trying to pull all the way down. Now your tackle doesn't have that responsibility. He's just going for an inside cutoff block, and it's a little easier play. Both ways are effective. I think if I was doing it, I'd try to change it up in both cases. Do it both ways. Again, it gives them another look, another picture, another way that they're going to have to try to defend what you do and what you do best. Now, let's give the chalk to these guys over here. If you were on defense and we were an effective toss team, what are you going to do? You're going to tell this guy right here, I'm not going to let you hook that defensive end. Okay, our answer, so that we can still be effective with it, is now everything else remains the same, but now the big change we want to make on this play, all we want is a communication between that tackle and that tight end. We're just going to make a switch call. We're just going to make a switch call. And we called it, for their terminology, it was an eat call, an eat block, where we had the end or the tight end coming down, the tackle now coming around. Now we got that big defensive end sealed, so we could still get the ball outside, and the tackle and the tight end switched, and nothing else changed within the play. Nothing changed. We still were able to run that play, but we knew now that we couldn't effectively block that defensive end. And so if you're having a problem with that defensive end is saying, hey, we're going to slant that defense every time against your eye. Now, we've got some things I can show you to counteract that, but just to make so you can say, hey, I can still run the toss play and I can do it effectively. Another interesting point is the down and distance that you call this play or any play. What will happen to you sometimes if you want to run the toss and say it's a long yardage. Let's say we're running the toss on 3rd down and 4 or 5 or 2nd and 8, and now maybe they're playing you for the pass, so they've decided to get into a coverage. One of those coverages that Mike White talks about on his tape, the 2-man where you got people playing man-to-man underneath. In other words, this guy is assigned to that tight end man-to-man. Now, if that's the case, our call is to run the toss play, the 28 toss, and put an easy call on it. All easy meant is the tight end now released, easy released, and he went to block that strong safety, or the man the fullback was going to block, and now the fullback switched assignments. He came off. Hey, if they were in a 2-man and this guy's running off, the fullback keeps running right down the field to make his block, and it's a bonus. If for some reason he wasn't, now they just switched. He's got the Sam linebacker, the tight end switch. So that's a variety of ways of running that play. And I'll guarantee you, people that make this play effective, that run it effectively, are doing all these things. They don't just say, hey, we're going to run the eye toss one way, and now they just take it away from you by that end coming upfield. So I think you've got to have those calls in there. These guys have to know. If I'm that tailback and I know I'm getting a switch call, it's a heck of a lot different read. I know that Sam backer is probably going to step down when that tight end blocks down, and now I can take that thing a little bit more outside than I would have. He also should know he's got those guards pulling up inside, so the minute he makes that cut back underneath, he knows where his help is coming from. I think it's a real fallacy sometimes that a back, all he has to know is run the daylight. He should understand everything I've drawn up here on this play. He should understand whether it's a toss with a switch call, whether it's a toss with an easy call, or whether it's a toss with a normal call. Then he can obviously be twice the effective running back that he would be if he's just running it and just running the daylight. Okay. All right, now, off that toss play, and I'm going to talk more strong side. Let's just look at it very quickly. For instance, if we were confronted, because you've got to make a decision. People are going to slide that defense on you. They're going to move that nose. They're going to eagle the backside or reduce it down, as I showed you before. Let's just look at it if they were an even defense, just so that we can effectively talk about blocking when guards are covered as well as when they're not covered. On the base 4-3 defense, the only change now we obviously don't have a Mike linebacker, so we've got the two tackles and ends in there now. Instead of a nose guard, one of these would be similar to a nose guard, and you got your same 3 linebackers. Now, the only change we make, everything stays the same right here. Now you've got to make a decision right here before we pull that guard. Now if he's covered, you've got to make a decision whether you're going to try to slip him off or you're still going to pull him and try to make that center make that overblock. That's a tough assignment for that guard unless you feel you're getting some kind of a pinch type defense. So what we felt The best way to do it is try to pinch off or do that off, get that guard off and not pull him, and now the play becomes a full scoop play. One other method we came up, if you've got an athlete right here, if you've got a center that's really an athlete, the great way to run this play is now keep these guys solid, pull that center around on that play, and maybe even take the chance of pulling the other guard and coming down with this tackle on the backside. Seen teams in professional football that are pulling that center. You got that good athlete in there, it's a great way to do it. And it's much more effective than it is when you've got to try to come off. A lot of times this guy gets tangled up, can't come off on that inside linebacker. It's not quite as good a play. Let's say now we get into a situation, they take that 34 defense and they move the whole thing over. All they've done is moved it strong, and now they've got an even look over there. Number one, I'd say don't run the play. If that's the answer. If you've got it called, you got to do the best you can. That's pretty tough. Now that center's got to pull, come all the way around there to get him. It's not as effective play, and this is where, as we get into a little bit more detail, this is where we start getting into a check with me system, where now my huddle call might have been toss, trap. And now I might go to the trap rather than the toss, which I'll show you how we block the trap play. Now to get inside, we're going to go with the lead play. And the reason I like this play so well, it really fits into our concept of the multiple offense and the variety. We can run this play, both strong side and weak side, again, balanced, both sides in the I formation. The other thing we can run it from the far formation, which I'll get into later, but that formation can still run the lead. We can get into split backs and run the lead. So they all fit in. It's 3 different formations, one way of blocking it. The lead play basically is a get after him play. When we're running the lead play, this is a play, basically everybody has a man or a drive block technique, and we're coming off the ball. That center's coming off the ball, that guard's coming off the ball, that tackle's coming off the ball. This block is not like the toss play now. We want to come off the ball and get our head inside on that Sam backer. We'd like to get inside here, but this block here, it's not critical that we do. We can take that guy, just get him off the ball, because we're going to read that particular block. Center's got the man on him, guard's got the man on him. We got a cutoff block over here. The back should understand now the one unblocked guy is that weak side or that will linebacker. We want it, the fullback is going to run that dive course right over the 2 area, and all he's going to do is pick up any of the garbage or anything that comes through. We got the extra blocker actually on the strong side. So he's going to lead up in there. He may help on that Mike linebacker if he steps up and we're having trouble with him. This guy pinched underneath or the Mike backer scraped, now he'd have to eyeball him and go and pick up that linebacker inside. We're going to get the ball as deep as we can to that tailback who's merely running a slant course right over the inside leg of that tackle or over the 4 area. Slant course over 4, read the defensive end. Remember we said, give him a course, give him a man to read. All he's going to do is determine what that guy does. If he bounces outside, he's underneath. If he comes inside, he's bouncing out. The great thing about this, like we're saying, is that fullback, if he's got those eyes open as he comes in there and he sees something like this happening, now he's got a chance to jump up and pick up that linebacker where that guard probably would miss him. Great play for that reason. The other thing, remember I mentioned to you, we said, what do they do to the I formation? What's the first adjustment we're going to get? We're going to get that reduction where they move that end down, that linebacker down, maybe even slide that nose, offset him in that gap a little bit, and now great system here would be come up and just say, lead, check with me in the huddle. Now the quarterback could come up and go 24, or he can go 25. And we could run it now at the bubble defense or this triangle right here. Now we've got straight blocks. That center's got a pretty easy block now because he's offset. Now we got that fullback. The difference, he has a definite blocking assignment now where he didn't before because there's no tight end to this side. So we got 3 on 3. That guy runs that slant course right there. He's going to make a read off that man right here now, a little bit wider, and he may take it inside or he may take it outside. And it's a very effective play, probably the best or one of the most used plays out of the I formation to get inside. This is the play a lot of teams will automatic to when they see that reduction on that side. That's where they want to run the football. They want to break it back in there. And obviously it's not as good over here. I mean, they've moved that nose, so when you look at this defense, there's really 1, 2, 3, 4 strong, not quite as good, and a tough block for the center. So we come back to the weak side with that. Looking at it from the even or the 4-3 defense, when they jump up in that, I've got a lot of, I think you can still see that here. Now, everything stays the same as far as man-on-man principles. This guy here is really inclined now to thinking, I'm going to have to help that center, because the minute this action helps, that center's got a tough block getting over there to try to get that middle linebacker all the way to that side. So again, that fullback is thinking right there, if for some reason the center can't get that guy, we get him upfield on a defensive back on one of those safeties, and again, we can run the same play. The tough thing about this play is if they pinch inside and force that thing to bounce all the way out, now we bounce it out and we've got nobody out here on that strong safety that comes up to the outside. That can hurt that play. One way to help you, because you know that's a factor, and this would kind of be a rule of thumb as we get into any outside play or an inside play that would bounce. One thing that happens sometimes, bring that split of that receiver down a little bit. Get him in a tighter split, because what defensive coaches will talk about, now they'll bring that safety back a little bit and they'll roll that coverage, because now they know they can do this type of a roll action. You don't get that hard, strong safety support. And so now if it bounces out, you at least got a chance to block that, and the safety coming from a deeper alignment isn't going to be up in your face immediately. You can do it another way, is line up in this set a twin setter with 2 wide receivers to one side. Now you'll get something like this. Now bring this guy across in motion, whether it's the toss or the lead. Now if he does, you got him at least running across to come up and make that block. He's outside and not as much a factor, and you can put that wide receiver coming in motion on an inside safety, and in case the play bounces outside or any inside play does, it gives you a chance to get him blocked. So 24 lead, great play in a multiple system. Run both strong and weak. Also run from 2 or 3 different formations. We like to play. Okay, the other method of getting inside, and this is a play. We ran the play in college, but I have great recollection sometimes of this. And I remember playing the Miami Dolphins, and they were a great defensive football team up front. And we had a tough time because we were running the ISO play at the time. We finally threw it out, and even the lead play, they were stepping up in there, because the minute they saw a drive block or an angle block, those linebackers, those inside linebackers they had were so effective at stepping up inside that we weren't as successful with it. The other thing they had just like the Denver defense, that linebacker is coming a lot of times so hard off the outside, he'll catch a lead play from behind. I mean, some of the great ones, and you've seen it, where a guy like a Lawrence Taylor, you're running a lead play over here, and he's coming on hard, he'll actually come and catch that play before it gets in the strong side hole. So a play and a method that we had to keep this guy honest. We want to make sure that guy is going to stay honest, that he's not chasing plays from the backside. We called a play that we called either 24 or 25, and let's diagram it right now on the weak side as 25 tear. And all tear is just to turn the guard and tackle out. Tear, turn them out. So now, because this play is here, we're going to turn, that's going to neutralize. He's not going to be coming off that corner pretty hard anymore when that big offensive tackle's blocking him. We turn the guard out on that defensive end, and now this linebacker didn't see an angle block or a guy coming right at him. He saw that guard turn out, so his initial reaction is to slide out a little bit and read that guard's block. You freeze him in there. Now, the rest of the assignment, this is the key block. This is the key block, and I should probably, let's do that. I'm calling it 25 tear. Let's call it 23 tear. Let's call it 23 tear because it is a little tighter play, and it's actually coming all the way back even to the one area, but we'll call it 23 tear. And I'll show you why and what the back is reading. This is the key guy. That's who this back is going to read on his course. On this side, we want to make sure we're getting that Mike linebacker, we're cutting this thing on the back side so that we don't get penetration in case it cuts back. Now the fullback's assignment, dive course over 3. Dive course over 3, block the inside linebacker. So he's coming up in there. Now we said Again, that linebacker we don't expect to be running through or stepping up in there like you would on the ISO play because of the blocking scheme up front. The tailback, our running back, is going to run the same course over that 3 area, but his read is right here. He's reading the nose. So that quarterback wants to get him the ball as deep in an open pivot as he can, so that tailback can get that ball into that area as quickly as he can. Now, whatever this guy does, he's wrong. We hope that nose guard, that our center can get into him, and we just take that thing right up that alley, and that fullback gets that block on that linebacker. If for some reason he should slant this way, and they're all slanting, now that tailback is going to cut it back. He's going to cut it back off the nose, and we're upfield. A scheme that we change up on the backside of this play. If I'm cutting back, as you can see, this is a tough block. Let's say they're slanting those guys back to the weak side to take that play away. That's a tough block for that offensive tackle. So now a call could be made, and these linemen, if they feel that or feel this guy in any kind of an inside shade, they're going to call what we call a gut block, or a guard going first, a tackle underneath. That's all it means. They're switching assignments. The guard now is doing the same thing as this guard is doing. Only thing now, that tackle is coming underneath, because we hope this action, now he can get into that guy and take him by the hole, and we ensure that this guy isn't coming underneath that tackle where he can come down the line of scrimmage and make the play. It's just a method on the backside to cut off any of that backside pursuit. This still may be a tough block, because that linebacker may be running where he's got to run across the hole and take him by. But you can see, imagine if that happened and we get that sealed, that back hits that thing back like this, and that guard runs him across the hole and he cuts it back. I mean, he's out the gate. He's gone into the secondary now. It's just a matter of breaking tackles. So the play is excellent because of this scheme. If you've got a stud over here, a guy that really is giving you some trouble, either catching a play from the backside and you want to neutralize him, run right at him. But don't run at him and expect this guy to be making that block all the time, or that. Do it with the guys that are getting paid to do it. Right here, 270, 280 pounds, turn him out on that guy, and now the tear play becomes a real effective play. Now, if we were running that 23 tear against an even, when you get him into an even front, and it's still a good play, still an excellent play. Against the even defense now, whether we run it strong or weak, obviously you can't turn out now. I mean, how are we going to turn anybody out? They're already covered. So the only change we make, if a tear is called, it just becomes obviously a solid. If we were running it to the strong side, it would just be man-to-man blocking, and now it turns into a lead play, the lead play we ran before, and the fullback goes through searching him out. The tear becomes a lead. Adjustment. You don't want to block the play like you do an odd, so this play automatically turns from tear into lead. Same way over here. If they're covered, we can't turn out, so we block, and now we do have to put that fullback on that linebacker. This guy still runs that same course, and he makes the read off that defensive tackle. But it's the same play with no tear blocking. Tear becomes lead. Tear becomes lead, the same play, and still an excellent play. Not as good against that defense as it is against the 34. We like it especially against the 34. And if we're playing maybe a team that was a 43 team, we wouldn't run this play. We wouldn't run it. We'd run the tear only if we're playing a team that runs the 34 defense. Okay, now I think in any offense or any sets that you're running, you've got to always look at it from the standpoint. I know I always did this in the passing game. Give the chalk over to that defensive coach. I mean, if we're an effective toss team out of the eye, we're an effective lead team, we're an effective tear team, you better have an excellent counter out of each one of those formations. And I think the best counter play, and it was the most effective play we had with Chuck Muncie. Chuck was excellent at running it, and it takes a back with some gifted ability, but it's up to the guy upstairs in the press box. It's up to that coordinator to finally get a feel and say, hey, we've been effectively running that lead, we've effectively run that tear. Now they're starting to do some things over to our strong side. So you better have the answer. And I think this is critical in the running game. Anybody can draw up plays. But now you get into a ball game and all of a sudden, holy man, the best play that we've got, they're taking it away. You've got to have the answer and say, well, if they're doing this, hey, coach, let's go with our counter play now. They're overplaying us. They're either jumping that defense down, they're overshifting the eye because we're so good strong, or have an answer. My answer to this is now the play we want to run is we want to run 29 counter, or our weak side counter play. Because of these kind of things happening, or this guy coming down hard. All the counter play, and most of the time when it's effective is not that particular stunt. They get those linebackers just flowing across and gap control and everything cut back. So now we're going to try to make this look like, we're going to make it look like the tear strong or the lead play strong or even a toss, because everything starts that way. The key is this block right here. That guard is going to pull and try to hook anything outside that offensive tackle. So what we want to do, we want to get this Sam backer cut off. We want to get this guy cut. We don't want any penetration inside. The fullback is running that dive course over that 2 area. He's going to block that middle linebacker. He's going to fill for that guard. The center, we're using a little bit of a false influence on this play. We want that center to make that nose think that it's a strong side play, so he's really going with his head to the opposite side of the play, to the even side, and then he's going to get that nose guard hooked or reversed after he reads the head of the center. Great against the 34 read team. This guy playing the play, hopefully, that guard is going to run him by the play. The tough block, and it's only effective after you've set up the strong side plays, the tough block comes right here. Because really, that tackle is selling the cutoff like we're running strong side. As that defensive end fights into him, he's going to reverse or he's going to hook him so that we can get the ball back outside. The pulling guard is pulling, getting depth, and he's looking for anything outside that tackle's block, which normally is the weak side or the will linebacker, to make the block. The footwork on this thing's a little bit tricky. What we found out later is by keeping that guy, and I haven't talked much about these depths, but we've got that fullback in there at about 4 with his hands. We had that tailback at 7.5. His feet at least at 7.5, so he could take those 3 quick steps this way, and then as that quarterback reverses to get him the ball, we want him to take the ball, and his course is really a sweep course. We don't want him starting up inside too soon. We want him to start like he's going outside, so if that backer came up, we'd kick him and it's underneath. If the backer did that, then we'd certainly take it outside. But the footwork on that's a little bit tricky, and you can experiment with your guys. Let them do what's natural. Here's one place, don't try to plug in and say, hey, you got to take 1, 2, 3, plant. I think sometimes coaches do that, and you really hurt the effectiveness. You want him to sell the play strong and get back weak. Find out which is the easiest and the best way he can do that. If it's 3, we found with our backs, it was 1, 2, 3, roll into that step and come back around to the outside and now get the stretch. If we get a reduction over here, that play really doesn't change. The only thing that I back ought to be, you ought to say, I see that now, it might be an inside play. Because normally when they're lined up like this, that linebacker now, obviously that tackle can't do any kind of a false block, false influence, so he's just got to turn him out. We just block it like that. Now the guard comes around and he searches up inside or out to block that inside linebacker on the reduction defense. But it's still a great play. But this back right here, as he's standing in that I formation, a lot of times that's the advantage of the I. He can see that front. As he's standing in that I formation, he's looking out there and he sees a reduction on that side. He's saying to himself, I know that defense, that linebacker isn't going to let our tackle reverse block him now. He's going to be coming upfield. We got to turn him out. So I'm probably, as I take that step, I'm going to be thinking inside much quicker. So he's got to recognize that defense and be able to make that adjustment. Okay, so whether it's reduced or whether it's an even, we'll make that adjustment out of the back. Now in the even defense, only difference now, the guy we want to pull, the guy we're going to pull on that is still the guard, but now our center as he's doing that on this block, that center is off blocking now so we can pull the guard. The fullback now on that play is going up and searching for that middle linebacker. Now we've got 2 reverse blocks on the backside. The guard's still coming for that. And a lot of times we've really got to sell this. This tailback has got to sell that action, because if that middle linebacker doesn't step over this way, that fullback, and he goes there, we'll never get him. We'll never get him. It's very important that tailback sell that play is coming to the even side. Because if that middle linebacker doesn't respect that at all and he just takes off over here because he sees the pulling guard, which can happen, now that fullback is in a foot race to try to find that middle linebacker. And again, these 2 blocks, are a little bit tougher. We hope they're overplaying the play. I wouldn't say it's as great a play against the 43 defense as it is against the 3-4, but not a bad play. Not a bad play. So have an answer. Have an answer. I don't care what formation, what system in this multiple thing. Have an answer to have a counter play and know what the strengths and weaknesses of your formation is. The strength of the I formation, balance. The strength of the I formation, maybe the best play is the toss and that lead, so people will start playing you that way. They're going to give you a reduction. Have some plays that can beat that reduction. I just told you the lead play is a great play against the reduction. I like this counter play and the play that comes off. And now those are basically the plays we're talking about out of the I. We're talking about the toss, we're talking about the lead, we're talking about the tear, we're talking about the counter. Now, the counter is a counter action, which you need, and I think and we'll get a little bit, even when we're talking running game, the one phase of that pass game we'll talk about, because, and this is a great point. You know, you do drills with in your practice plan, and you do running drill. You get into a middle six drill where you're running all your running plays, and you got to do that every day. You have to do it every day. You're just stuffing those plays in. You got a scout team over there. You're running the plays. Do you ever, when you're doing that, also throw some play passes in? Even if the wide receivers aren't involved in the drill, it's just your 7 against those 7 guys with no defensive backs there, and you're running your middle drill. The thing that we did, every now and then, throw your play pass in, because that's the best time to practice it, because they're looking for run, and now you run a play pass at them. Because you get into the passing game and you're running 7-on-7, heck, now play passing isn't worth a darn. The minute the quarterback comes out, they all drop back. So utilize and practice your play pass game in your middle running drills. So the play pass that's an outstanding play pass is off that counter action that we just drew up, off that 29 counter. And everything is basically the same. We call it the 29 counter pass. And now everything, if you can keep it consistent, if you can keep the play pass exactly like the running play, now it's so much more effective, because these guys, these linebackers who are so smart, and I guarantee you, those guys that Joe Collier coaches, if you do one thing and now I'm going to run the play pass, instead of pulling the guard, I block him down, they're not going to even respect it. They're going to go right back to the pass. So try to run it exactly like you run the running play. So what I'm saying now, what did we do? On the running play, we blocked this guy, so block him. We blocked him. We pulled the guard and we filled with the fullback, so do the same thing. We blocked him. We set this guy in there. We blocked that backside. Now, you don't have to use a reverse technique, but you're blocking that defensive end. The guard who's pulling is pulling for depth. He's looking for anything that comes off the outside here to protect that quarterback. And he knows that throwing spot of that quarterback now is going to be over the guard, 7 yards deep as he comes off that fake. The tailback does exactly the same step, makes that fake, but now instead of stretching, he's right up in there and he's out in the flat, and we run a combination route with that X receiver and that back off the play pass. You don't get the tight end in the route. He's got to stay in there. You clear with that guy, and you know you heard Coach White, and Coach White will talk a lot about the different play passes and how those guys run it. But this play, and I really believe that the year we finally beat USC when I was at Cal, and we had a little receiver named Steve Rivera who must have caught 8 passes that day off of this pass. Why? Look at if they're in the reduced. Great play. Now that guy's coming out there, he's looking for anything. That guard will pick anything off. You got solid, excellent protection. If anybody steps up, you got that back out, and this receiver in that area, there is nobody in that weak side hole. Or if they start playing the toss or they're looking for the counter, all you got to do is freeze that inside stack linebacker, and this play becomes a gimme. It's a great play. It's a great play pass off of this action. I love it because of the effectiveness of the counter play. Okay, 29 counter pass. Now the play pass, and I'll do this very quickly, the play pass that most of the colleges are running, and we ran it, is just off your cut play, really. The biggest problem I found with this is when we run the cut play, and I haven't taught cut play, but if you want to run a play pass strong off of this, all we're going to do is the same. Now, if you want to release the tight end and get these guys into the route, now with your fullback blocking out here and the tailback filling inside and all your solid protection, now when we're doing this, Now you've got to assign these two. And what we did on this play, we had to change our blocking scheme, and we're blocking everything back. So now from the guard or the uncovered man over, we're sliding everything. So 1, 2, 3, 4 are blocking 1, 2, 3, 4. They're responsible for anything that way. And the tailback is stepping up in. That is probably the most used play in college football off that cut action. The only thing with it, this blocking scheme doesn't really tie in with much that we did. We didn't really run the cut play. We didn't really do this and run the ISO. I shouldn't say didn't run the cut. We didn't run the ISO. So a linebacker that sees that happen, the minute he sees it, he says, hey, they're running play pass, and he's dropping back into that zone and not respecting the play. So you've got to run the ISO to give him that read. But that's the method. That's how people do it, and it's a good play pass. I think the counter pass is much better. But if you got a great tight end, you can't get him out on the counter pass, so you've got to go to the cut. But another method of throwing the ball, another play pass, and what was one of the things we said was the strength of the I formation? Play pass. It gives you good play pass game, takes a lot of pressure off the quarterback on his ball handling, and so the play pass is very effective. This concludes my discussion of the I. Obviously, there are many, many plays you can run from the I formation. As we've discussed, other play like an ISO and so forth, these are the ones that I think are effective. I think you've got to really analyze it, and certainly, if you've got a great tailback, you'd be foolish not to run this I formation. You people that believe in the I and really strongly run the I formation, hey, it's a great formation. It's excellent formation. I hope the plays, the few that we've drawn up here, the ones that we believe in, and a few of those little coaching points are things that will really help you and help your I formation be that much more effective. Okay, now we talked about the I formation being an excellent formation because we have the great tailback. That doesn't mean in our multiple system of running the best plays and the best formations that you can't stay with the I formation if you don't have that great back. Because sometimes, and obviously in your case, you may not have that guy, but you still want to run a little bit of the I. The reason I say that is most backs standing in that two-point stance in the upright position can take that ball in the I toss play and still be able to come off that thing and read and cut it up into the green. Not maybe have the ability to run that angle in there, that slant course, and make a quick read out of the I, but they can still run the toss. So stay in the I. Make it a part of your offense, even though that's not the major part of your offense. All right, now let's walk away from the I. Let's get into another formation, and the one, to me, that I like the best. I think the reason I feel that way is because it allows you to be more balanced. When I say balanced, and the first point we made, more balanced in run and pass. When I was in the USFL, this formation we found was the best formation for us. We had a quarterback by the name of Doug Williams. And now what it did for us, it allowed us to throw the ball effectively out of it, and we were able to execute an excellent running game. Now, in the far formation, and some people call it the pro, where we've simply got that back now set over to the weak side. The real strength of this attack, to me, not quite as good as a split back attack as far as throwing, but it's much better than the I to throw the football. Obviously, with that tailback or halfback sitting up on that weak side, running those option routes out of the backfield like Coach White talked about in his passing tape, he's in a position now to be able to do that. You better have a back, however, that maybe has got a little more ability as a blocker here now than he did in the I. That would be a disadvantage. He's forced to do a little bit more blocking where he didn't have to do that out of the I. Great weak side attack. Great weak side attack. But the thing you have to remember, try to hit strong and weak. We talked about in the I being balanced. Now, the far formation is obviously a little bit stronger this way, but you certainly can run a lot of great plays to the strong side, which I have written up here and we'll get into in just a second. Now, the other thing I like about it, it's great misdirection. The I doesn't give you a lot of misdirection. They're either going one way or the other, and when they're crossing out of the I, you don't get the same effect as a misdirection with that fullback going one way and the tailback coming another way, as you'll see in the 48 counter tray. A little bit different action. Great action to freeze those linebackers. Hits quicker than the I, hits much quicker. You got those backs in a position to be able to do that. Now, along with this halfback having to be a better blocker, you also find in this situation in the passing game, you may not have quite as good a flood game over to this side. Even the I, you can flood that tailback over there a little bit quicker. Not quite as good for that. It does put a little more pressure, even though I made the point it was great for a guy like a Doug Williams in this offense. It does put a little bit more pressure on him in the run game. Some of his run fakes and things are a little bit more intricate. He's got to make some pivots that happen a little quicker than they do when you're sitting in that I formation. So it does put a little bit more pressure on him. Now, the thing I also like about it so well, and as we get into talking about the one-back offense, you can get out of this formation and into a one-back offense with movement by one of your backs. In other words, you could jump this back up into that double wing or that slot inside or line him up outside. And now you're in a one-back set, and it puts pressure on the defense. You still can run things with that fullback. Also, you can take that back and motion him, bring him back in movement and run these plays with him moving rather than sitting there. You'll see, which I'll explain when we run the trap, where you can take that fullback and run him out of there as a receiver to the weak side and still hit the trap play, which we'll get into, the 40 trap with that halfback. So it's a real good formation, very easy to change the set by a little bit of movement by one of the backs, create tremendous pressure on the defense, and not harm your running game a great deal. Again, we're still in a two-back attack. The I and the far are still a two-back attack, and that's why we think it's so good. If you're going to run the football, you better be in a two-back attack most of the time, so you've got lead blockers and people that can help. All right, let's start with the first play, and what I'm talking about here, we're going to talk about a weak side sweep or reach play with the fullback, the three back going weak side. We're going to give the ball to the fullback straight ahead. We're going to run the tailback on a trap inside. We're going to run our outside fill play or sweep play. We're going to run a near guard play. This situation here, as we did in the I, remember we said you better have an answer if they overplay the formation. If they overplay this formation weak, this play, as I will diagram, will be our answer to attack the defense when they start overplaying our weak side belly or reach play. And then the play that so many people are running in the National Football League and the one the Redskins made so successful with Riggins, the counter tray. We'll get into that. All right, let's start with the dive or just the base play off of this. And I'm going to develop the strong side attack first so that we can show how we can run strong side and then allow us to have the answer if they start taking some of those plays away. The first and the lead play, which is a very simple, and everybody I think runs it, is just to open up and give the ball to that fullback on a dive course right over that 2 area. I'm just talking about just a straight 32 dive. And everybody up front, no great blocking schemes or anything like this. Everybody comes off and blocks a man, and you give the ball to that fullback. Now, very simple, but yet it's the foundation of this play, of this formation and the plays that will come off of it. Because from this, you will see us, as I get into diagramming the fill play in a minute, you will see where we'll even at times pull that guard, sucker that guard, and still give him the ball in the dive play and see what happens if they're overplaying one of our other plays. But all we're talking here, right at that bubble now, the fullback has got to know on that when we're making these blocks and we're coming off on these blocks, that fullback has to know that if we get some kind of a slant defense, even though he's busting up in there, and we said we line him up at 4 yards deep with his hands, he may have to cut that thing back. He's got to have that ability to make that read off that nose and cut it back. If they were in an even defense, if we just jumped into that even set, then obviously that read would come off of that block right there, and he would cut it outside or cut it inside based on what that defensive tackle does. Now, you can do a couple things with your halfback. What we want to do, we want to bring him across, because you'll see as I get into our fill play, this is the action that we're going to see. So we want to do the same thing on this, but you could, if you're concerned about that cutback once in a while, nothing says you can't just drive that halfback in, cut off that backside, so in case you do get the cutback play once in a while, you've got that backside linebacker blocked. So the base play that we start out with is that fill. And I want to make a point here with these backs. Everything we've talked about, people down in a 3-point stance, although in the I formation he's standing up in a 2-point stance. Now, you'll see some people, I see the Seattle Seahawks doing it, Penn State on the college level, where those backs are standing up in a 2-point stance. If that's your preference, or if that's their preference, and they can more effectively run by being up in a two-point stance, no problem. Let him do it. I personally like the three-point because I think we get a little bit more explosion off it and you can come off the ball quicker. But hey, sometimes you're going to find some of your backs can do that better. The other point with this formation, don't be tipping it. Don't be having this guy lined up cocked like that when you're running weak side and then get him back when you're running strong side. Really take a look on your films and as you're practicing and make sure that that halfback who's lining up, splitting the leg of that tackle is pretty well parallel or at the same depth as that fullback is, so you're not tipping it which way you're going to run. All right, let's take the next play off of the fire formation, which is the one I like. And I know on the college level, when we were running this formation, we always said it's really difficult to get that back strong on a good strong side running play because of the flow and this kind of thing. We felt when I was in Arizona in that USFL, the best play that we ran is the play I'm going to draw up right now, which we're going to call the 39 fill play. And it's really our sweep. It's our sweep play. This was about a 4, I think around a 4.6 we averaged on this play throughout the year in the USFL. It was an excellent play. Now, on this particular play, what we're going to do, like I said, it's our lead, our sweep to the strong side. And all we're going to do on the sweep is we're going to replace the guard with our fullback. We're going to replace the guard with our fullback, try to get that back outside on the outside to 38. Phil, I got 39. This should be 38 because, again, we're running to the even side. We're running to the right or the even side. Now, just like on the eye toss, critical block. It doesn't have to be a great knock him off the line block. You'd like to get him hooked if you can so we can get it outside. This block right here, we've got to try to get that guy picked off on that little bit of a reach technique to get him hooked. The guard now is going to pull. He isn't even worried about that middle linebacker now. He doesn't have to eyeball him back in there like he had to do on the eye toss. He's going to pull for depth, and he's looking for the first force between these two guys. They're going to block these two. So if we have this situation, there he comes. He's on that strong safety who'll be coming up in a run support in that cover 3 technique. So just you're going to come off. That guard has got that key block. Converse to the toss now, because the fullback's coming in here, we don't want to pull this guard. These two are responsible for these two in their scoop technique. And then the backside tackle, the same thing. He's going to cut anything off the backside. Okay, now let's talk about the replacement of that guard and that fullback. The guard on his pull course. Now the difference in this and the eye toss that we talked about, on the fill play now, that guard does not have to worry about any run through by that linebacker. That's not his responsibility. He's going to pull, and he's coming around that corner, and he's going to block the inside force of the two. So in this case, when they're in cover 3, we got him up the field on that strong safety. We've got the wide receiver on that corner. If we had some kind of a cover 2, and I don't want to get into all that, the switching these combinations where he'd take the safety and he'd block that, that's another way of doing it. So we just come around the corner, key block. This guy here, if you've got an athlete at that position, it certainly makes this a better play. We had an excellent athlete when we ran this thing in Arizona, and I could show hours of film to our team of this guy just knocking one guy down and sometimes two. He was excellent on this pull, so we obviously ran the ball more to the right because of him being the right guard than we ever ran it to the left. And again, that's a good point for you. If you've got the better puller there, try to run it to your right. Now the fullback starts just like he did when we when we went over the 32 dive play. He's hitting over that same area, but his responsibility now is to find and search out that middle linebacker. So if that middle linebacker's running with that guard or whatever, he may have to end up bouncing way out here, going in through here. He's got to get that middle linebacker on his course. But you want to start it the same way, because the quarterback, as that quarterback on that play just opens and gets that mesh right here, then he steps back and hands the ball to that tailback. So we've got that pull by that guard. We've got the switch on the replacement of the fullback and the guard. Center, just as he did on the toss, is going to try to get that nose guard reached. And he, in combination with the off guard, these two are going to find a way with their technique, their scoop technique, to block the nose, and the inside linebacker. Backside tackle's got his cutoff, cutting off either the end or the weak side linebacker to ensure that. Important on this, when that quarterback opens and comes back, make sure that he ends up using a normal drop, whereas he comes off that, he just takes his fifth step after the fake, where he can set up at that depth, because we're going to come off this action with a play pass. So very important. He doesn't have to make a fake to the fullback. There's just enough mesh there with the fullback to get that action, but then he hands the ball to the tailback and he sets up on a 5-step drop. All right, just a couple things that you can do on this particular play. We've done it with movement this way, with that Z, so that now we get a different force over there. Helps the play. Set up every time on this, as we mentioned, so that now when I'm setting at that point, I want to check coverage each time, because I want to see how they react to the fill play. I want to see what the reaction is every time as a quarterback. Now remember what I mentioned remember I said on that 32 dive play, there have been times on the 32 dive where we just ran the sucker dive off of this play. If we find that middle linebacker is doing this all the time and we're having a tough time with that fullback running out there to get to him, we may just call 32 dive G pull. Same play as that dive, we just pull him, hope that linebacker runs out with him, just give it to the fullback instead of blocking that man and running out at him. We have run the 32. I can still visualize in this, again, the USC game when I was at California, of Tom Newton, our fullback on that team, taking that ball and going in the end zone from the 18-yard line on the 32 dive guard pull, just because they were overplaying our fill to the tailback. Now this play also could be run from the I. I didn't draw it up in the I formation. It's better from this, but you can run the I toss fill, the same exact blocking, everything the same, only toss the ball to the tailback when he's in the I, and it's the identical mirrored play as is when we run it from the fire formation. Okay, so 38 fill, just the difference in changing up the guard and the fullback to get outside. Best play we felt we had in Arizona and had great success with it. I'm sold on the play where a couple of years ago I wouldn't have felt that way, but we found after running that so many times it really became an excellent play for us. All right, now let's take the other. I'm gonna go strong side on all the plays first, so that what we're doing, we're building that strong side running game, running the ball to the tight end or the strong side, and then we'll see how we can counter that. Let me just explain the fill play a little bit. If we got an even defense, let's say they're a team that played the even. Now the only change we make on that play, these are the same. The change we make now, remember we said we were going to replace the guard with the fullback. This sometimes can be a little bit of a tough block. If that's a big, strong defensive tackle in there, we will still pull that guard and block that fullback on that tee, because we don't think we can get this over block and get him through. If you feel like you can, or that guy's in an inside shade where that center can reach him on that, then fine. Then you can still get the center to reach and block that defensive tackle and get your fullback on the same search course for that middle linebacker. But it's a tough block. It can really be a difficult block, and so most of the time we have done this. The third alternative when you're doing this kind of thing is to still stay with that and pull that center. It doesn't work very well with that fullback and center because of the proximity of the two. So we've tried that technique, didn't like it, and have gone basically to that fullback in on that defensive end, and then driving that, still being able to pull that guard and get him around the corner. Tough block here, trying to come off on that, but the fullback obviously searching out to make that block, and he can't now because he's inside blocking. The center trying to get that block can be difficult. So we've switched it up that way, a little tougher to run it against the even defense. Okay, so much for the 38 fill. Let's get into now a blocking scheme that I really like, and the reason I do, a gentleman by the name of Frank Kush, who most of you are familiar with, the fine football coach from Arizona and at Arizona State, and then in the National Football League with Baltimore, is a strong believer in the trap. I know when I was in the college level, we really didn't trap very much. And yet I think back to it now, and I'm wondering to myself, as much as we threw the football, why didn't we? Because they tie together so well. And I learned the one thing from Coach Cush. He will run the trap. I don't care if you got 11 guys up in there. I mean, he convinced me that you can run the trap play. I don't care if they put them all up in that hole. He's still going to run the trap, and he proved it when he was at Arizona State. But the thing with the trapping game, I think, is if you get an overabundance of people up in there, then his idea, it really wasn't a trap. It became just a man block. Just everybody block man and still run the same play and give it to that back. Now, let's show the concept and the way that we feel is the best way to run that trap. Now, again, the same action strong side as on the fill play. We're going to get that ball to that tailback over that 0 hole, so we're going to run the 40 trap. It ties in real well with the action again of that quarterback opening to the strong side, fullback filling into the strong side, but now we're going to do it and give the ball to that back coming off on that backside on a trap, and it's a super play. If I was going to say the two in priority, the two best plays would be the fill and then the trap next off of this set. I think you'll find you'll have the most success with those two plays. Now, let's look at the scheme first, the trap blocking scheme. And I know what some of you are going to say. You're going to try to get this guy across on that linebacker. I tell you, most teams with the good defensive ends and with them up there in that read technique or sitting in there, whether they're pinching or whatever, we found it's very difficult to get that tackle across. So our scheme was this. We still wanted this double team combo off to ensure that. We're going to come down on that block and we're going to nail that nose guard and we're going to seal that point of attack. Now, rather than trying to bring that tackle across, and trap that defensive end, we wanted to make the play look just like the fill play. So we went with it, and this guy's a little bit more in that shade on that tackle. We wanted to sell the idea that it was going to be just like the fill play, just like we were running outside, make that defensive end fight pressure and take it outside, and then we're going to trap the linebacker rather than the defensive end. Now that off guard is coming up in that hole, and he's up blocking that linebacker. And that was our scheme on the trap, and we had much more success because trying to get this guy through and he gets jammed to make that block, everything just constricts in there, and it's tough on the back. So we released that tight end outside on this play to get him outside. The fullback drove in like he was running the fill, and then he turns out and blocks that Sam linebacker. He's out on that linebacker. Now, this play here, and this is a quick hitting. Anytime you hear the word trap, boy, it ought to trigger in your mind. I mean, that's bam, we're in there right now. There's no hesitation. That quarterback's got to take that quick step, just like he did on the fill play and the dive, and then reverse and hand the ball one lateral step, and then I'm right off that double team block right there on that trap. I take that quick step, and then it's the quick hand back, and we're going to trap that linebacker. Again, I'm not saying you couldn't block it the other way. If you find you can get that tackle through, hey, fine. Now it's a wider trap, and it's fine. We also found once in a while, and in coaching this guy, you tell him, you better, I remember Coach Kutch over and over again to our backs in Baltimore, hug the double team, hug the double team. Don't worry about where the trap is coming from. You don't want this guy to start working out in here. You want him right up off that double team because you know you've got two people on one, and that alley ought to be there for him when he comes up in there on the 40 trap. So quick hitting play. And off of this, we can run a play pass off this play as well. Excellent play, and we like to block the linebacker rather than blocking the defensive end. Now, if they were in the even defense, again, it's probably, this could be even a better play. Let me reverse those. I keep reversing those two guys. If they're sitting like this, now the only difference that we want to do here, again, we want to trap the linebacker. So we're in here, we're coming around, and we're up on that. Now this guard on that and this tackle are both running that influence head upfield to try to get that guy to widen. And now still release the tight end and drive that fullback in just as he did against the 34 defense. Now here's the case, the same reason, if you can get that guard across, on that middle linebacker, get him across in here, fine, then you can trap the defensive end. Great time to run the trap is when they're looking for sweep, right? When they're looking for that fill. Now this guy's in an outside position. We can run that technique I talked about. I'd sooner do that and trap that linebacker, and plus he's running out of there when he sees that action. Better that way, but if you feel you can get that guard across, hey, fine. Fine, get him across inside of that linebacker and then trap the defensive lineman. But the two ways on the even, it's good if they reduce it down. Good play if they reduce it down and they got that nose offset, so that doesn't take us out of the play. 40 trap, I'm showing you now a scheme, a trap type scheme that we believe in. So I don't care if we want to run a trap with him or a fullback trap. The scheme, when that line here is 0 trap or 1 area trap, they block it the same way. And now we have a trap scheme that goes in with our strong side running game. Okay? Now we've developed the strong side running game with that dive and that fill play and that trap, and we've had a method on the strong side of doing something if they overplay it. We've even got a sucker play. Now let's take a look at the weak side attack. And one point I probably should have mentioned, I sort of hit on it, going back to that trap, because we had so much weak side flood passing game. Don't forget, when you're running that trap that I just talked about, you can run movement out here with that back or shift him out over here to make people think you're running your weak side flood game or something on this side and then still hit that trap. And we had excellent success with that. I just wanted to make a point on that because I think it is important in our multiple system of running game. Now, on the 39 reach play, and the term reach, that's what we're talking about. This is basically a full flow reach play to the weak side. We're going to try to get that back, that 3 area guy, and we're going to get him in this 9 area on a sweep play, but from the far formation, So in this case, what we're going to try to do is get everybody hooked and hand the ball to that fullback on the weak side. Now, the one thing, people that talk about this play, they've got 2 or 3 plays. They've got the outside play, they've got the inside play, and they got the kind of a dive play. I feel this way. If you run this thing the right way, I really believe you can get 3 plays out of 1. I mean, this back can hit anywhere from outside in that 9 area, potentially clear back to the 0 area if you run it right, and he has some ability to get those hips turned and squared and back up into the hole. So our concept is get 1 play, work your tail off on that 1 play with all your blocks up front and make it go where it becomes 3 or 4 plays. All right, what we're going to try to do is get these 2 people, and I think this is where people make a mistake on this play. We haven't talked much about splits, but you got to cut that split down a little bit between these 2 because of what their assignment is. Really, that tackle is going to reach that defensive end, but he's going to reach far enough that he's actually thinking he's going to block that inside linebacker. So between these 2, this guard is coming, they're coming, he's just getting a piece of that to take a little of that sting away, the tackle, and you'd like to get something like this. Now you say, this guy can't make that block. He can if these 2 in combo do it right. If he won't let him, then the guard is up. But between the 2 of them, on their reach technique, between those 2 people, they're going to get those 2 blocked. Okay? The center and this guard are doing the same thing. Easier now, their scoop is to handle these 2. And then we've got the same thing. These 2 are going to handle the 2 backsides. So it's a total scoop principle across the line, or I should say a total reach on the front side, scoop on the backside blocks. Now, for the back, our initial assignment rule that we gave them, give this guy a course. Give this guy a course. He's got a slant course at the outside man line of scrimmage, and we want a hook block. All we mean by hook block is put that head on the outside. We want to block that will linebacker and get our head outside. Hey, good football player probably ain't going to let you hook him. We still want to go for that head outside and keep that guy working, make him think he's going to be hooked. Now, the key thing here with this fullback, we've said we've had him back at about 4. Well, you want to cheat him just a little bit up where his hand is at about just under 4 yards is what we found, because the quarterback is going to reverse pivot. And what you want out of that fullback, you want him to take that lateral step a little bit up. So really what he's doing, when he takes that lateral step up, as he steps this way with that lateral step, then he's going to cross to get the ball. So we want this to be a step with the left foot across and then a stretch. So he gets the ball on the first step, and now it becomes a stretch. What you don't want is him rolling into that hole and getting himself up in here where he can't make the bounce in or out. We want to stretch it first. So it's step with the left foot, crossover, get to this point. Now as he starts the stretch, he's going to see what the reaction of that weak side or that will linebacker is. If that guy is fighting outside, he's back underneath. If we get him hooked, he's bouncing it outside. against this coverage, it's a great play. I remember playing the University of Tennessee when I was with Coach White, playing them down there, and we ran this play into the boundary because they were a strong rover, strong safety cover 3 team. We ran that play into the boundary all day long. Had over 100 yards in that game, and I want to say 100 yards in this play. That's probably a little bit of an exaggeration. I mean, not exactly, but it seemed like every time we turned around, our big fullback was going down the sideline because they stayed in that coverage, and all we had to do was get this guy blocked, and that block there, and that fullback is around the corner. Now, the point I made, this play may hit all the way back in here. From clear, as you take that stretch, if we got this kind of thing, and as they're playing that, all the flow went, I've seen that fullback start up in there and bend it all the way back anywhere from that center all the way out to here, and it's just one play. And he's got to have that much ability. But give him a man to read. That's his man, and then he picks up any other color. I look at the Will backers, I get the ball, he's outside, I'm in, all of a sudden color shows, I may cut underneath that, and I'm up into that alley. 39 reach, super play. Super play. This was our better play in college than the fill play. We had great success with this because we saw so much of this defense. Got that soft side over here. If they play cover 2 and this guy rolls up, he can still jump on that guy's face. And now we're up inside. We kick him out and we still run the play. So it's good. It's good against that too. And hey, those guys got to make some blocks and earn their money once in a while too. That's a key block. I know what some people do on this, and we did it in pro football, is they will read this kind of thing. If they get the guy coming up, they take him. If he's off and you get any kind of support, they've actually done that and let that guy unblock because it usually becomes an inside play anyway. Have this receiver read if they get some kind of action like that, and this guy's the force man coming up because you really don't have him blocked. He's going to make a lot of plays, but if he does, hey, then boom. Now we're over the top on the pass, but that's another clinic on how you do that. All right, now let's take that same 39 reach play and let's look at it against a different defense. We blocked the even on our other plays. The even wouldn't be any problem. This is not the even. This is a reduce that I'm going to explain just the difference. And as you can see, all it is on the reduced, which we'll talk about. And you get a bunch of this. People that play the 34 defense, all they do is bump that will and that end down, move that nose to the strong side and stack that inside B linebacker, that reduced look, because it frees this guy up to make a lot of tackles, and people like that defense, and they like it a lot. So I think it's important we block this play, because I've had some questions. People say, how do you block it? And we've gone through some trial and error on what's the best thing to do against this defense. So if it's even, all you would do is just reach it, everything would stay the same. It wouldn't be any change. It's a full scoop. Now, on this, here's the key, and the only thing we need to really talk about, because now these two blocks here are going to be much easier for that guy to get off, and these blocks are the same. This is the key. So what we felt, rather than trying to just man block this and drive that back through there and turn it into a lead play, we still wanted it to look like an outside reach play. So we still ran that course, even though I'm thinking there, and we told these two guys, we told that tackle, you still try to reach that guy. Tailback, as you go on that course, they'll be eyeballing him, anticipate him coming outside. But if for some reason he didn't and he plugged, you've got to make the adjustment and come back in. If he ran in there, we feel like now we're outside and the guy cannot make the tackle anyway. We're just worried about him filling in here or filling out there. The thing we didn't want was this to be a drive block, that to be a drive block, and then a lead play, and he steps up in there. Now we just got a mush for this stretch play. We still wanted it to look like this, so we still did that and had this. If for some reason that guy just fought outside that he couldn't get him, we actually had that back blocking that linebacker off of that, and now he was in and he blocked the linebacker. So we're saying you two block these two and run it on the same course as you did before, because that defense, if now you get it outside, which it does, it's a great play. And this Will linebacker gets the threat of that back coming at his outside. He's got to widen, and now we're up in there and we get both of them blocked. And it's a small point, but it's a major point on running this play because of the alignment. And these guys have got to know that. This guy's got to know that. It doesn't change him. He's still stretching and reading that block, but now that guy sometimes could be running through there and we're outside, and now we got a heck of a play. Everything else stays the same. 39 reach, little different look for them, and a very important combination with these two. But sell that you're trying to make it an outside play, and hey, that guy may run it all the way back in there. That's the great advantage of this play.